When I first opened Robbins, I only had two thoughts in my mind. First was, wow, this book is huge. And the second one was, there's no way I'm reading all of this. Fast forward to the end of the year, I did end up reading it. And I also did end up getting a distinction in pathology. And this is the system that saved my life. Hi everyone, my name is Apurva. I'm currently a third year MBBS student at GMC Ratnam. And in this video, I'll tell you exactly how to read Robbins the right way and how do you get a distinction using just Robbins. And yes, it is possible. So, beginning with Is Robbins for You? I see a lot of people reject the book even before they open it because either they think that the English is too hard or they feel like that they've not read the standard textbooks in the first year. So, switching to them now would be a little bit harder. Also, a lot of people say that it's too lengthy and it's too time consuming. And to all of you, I would like to disagree. Robbins is for everyone. Like, you can read Robbins no matter what, but you have to give it one shot before you outright reject it. Before anything, why Robbins? No, I'm not getting paid. So, this is a gold standard book, obviously, it's great. Then we have the flowchart. For example, a person drawing a flowchart from Robbins has a higher edge at getting better marks because the examiners are also following the same book, right? So it is much more easier for them to recognize a flowchart from Robbins, look at it in a answer sheet and feel like, okay, you know what, the student has drawn a Robbins flowchart. They know what they're doing. Okay, correct. Also, the book has great explanations. Unlike your pre-made notes, unlike your exam preparatory manuals, it actually explains why is anything happening. And if you know the why, it is so much more logical, so much more easier to memorize instead of just, rote memorizing facts. Okay, so first of all, before I tell you how to read Robbins, I feel like we should discuss the common mistakes so that you don't make it. First is reading it line by line, like it's a novel or it's a storybook. It is not. It is not your NCRT. Stop reading it line by line. You're not supposed to, no one is going to quiz you what was on page 76, paragraph 1, line 3. So you don't need to know all that detail. You just need to know what the paragraph is saying to you. How does it make sense? Then highlighting paragraphs after paragraphs. Please don't do that. The entire paragraph cannot be important. Of course, there are exceptions, but usually that is not the case. And then there is the second kind of person who skips while reading. So people who skip boxes. So in Robin, boxes are very high yield. Usually they are review boxes, they are histopatho boxes, there are classification boxes. You are not supposed to skip those. They are important. It is usually the high yield stuff in the boxes. Then there's skipping the clinical correlation. So usually what students do, they read the beginning paragraph, they read the middle paragraph, they reach histopathology and they close the book. Okay, topic is done. It is not done. You are skipping clinical manifestation again. How are you supposed to get your diagnosis questions correct if you don't know what the clinical symptoms of a disease are? Right? If a patient shows up to you with a certain sign and symptoms, how are you supposed to rule out or rule in any disease if you skip this part entirely, right? So please don't skip this. You're supposed to read it from top to bottom. Clinical manifestation is as important as pathogenesis almost. And this is something that I've seen a lot with my batchmates. They treat the book as a try to rote memorize and commit to memory everything that there is in the book, but they don't really put in that much effort into understanding it. The problem with this is there is only so much memory you have. You have 3 other subjects in second year. There is no way you're able to rote memorize an entire book. It is not possible, and I don't see the point of doing it either, honestly. You don't need to. I did not do it. I did just fine, right? So these were the common mistakes. Now, the right way. Now, this is the system that I followed through the majority of my year, more or less. So first of all, priming. You're not going to read the book the moment you open it. You open the book and you flip through all the pages. Like, if you're going to read a topic, flip through the topic. Try to identify if there are any pathways in the book. Flowcharts, diagrams, headings, boxes, tables, anything that pops out of the page and looks at you. Find those first. And also make sure that you read the headings. Just read the headings. Don't actually start reading what is written after that. Then, not all paragraphs are created equal. if you read a paragraph, you're supposed to try to understand how this paragraph connects to the bigger picture. What is this paragraph trying to teach me? Learn that thing, summarize it, shorten it, and if it is important, write it in your notes and move on. Don't just keep stuck onto paragraphs after paragraphs. Robbins is not a storybook. Even if you miss a less important paragraph, you're still going to get the rest of the things right as long as you know the flow of the text. So focus on these 4 topics when you're reading it. Anything and everything you read, try to fit it into one of these. Etiology is the cause behind an event. So it can be a risk factor, it could be a reason. Then we have the pathogenesis, the actual process through which the situation is taking place. Then we have morphology. Morphology may we have gross and micro. You're supposed to do both if the book mentions it. And then at the very last, we have clinical features. So whatever you're reading, it should be able to fit into one of these headings. And lastly, incorporate everything into these headings in your notes. So I am not the kind of person who would ask you to read Robbins twice, thrice, or maybe even more times. I'm asking you to read it once and read it so efficiently and make such good notes that it sticks with you. You don't even have to read it twice. You just have very good notes. You have a good understanding of what the book is trying to teach you, and you're very good to go. So now this is the demo reading. I'm going to teach you side by side as to how I used to read in case my verbal instructions did not make a lot of sense. I would suggest that you get your book out or your PDF, whatever it is, and try to go with me side by side as I do it. Almost 8 to 10 pages worth of inflammation, acute inflammation. So this is how I would have read it. So first of all, okay, so we have acute inflammation.
Okay. There is a definition in 3 parts. Then we are just going to go through the headings, diagrams, flowcharts, all of that. So reactions of blood vessel in acute inflammation, okay. Changes in vascular flow and caliber. Caliber is the diameter of the vessel. Then we have a diagram about exudate and transudate, but we've already done this in chapter 1 in general patho, right? So we'll skip this. Then we have increased vascular permeability, responsiveness of lymphatic vessels and lymph node, and another diagram of increased permeability. See, this is one of those boxes. So in this we have vasodilation, role of histamine. Histamine is present twice in this box, so that means it's sort of important, so I will add this in my notes. Moving on, we have leukocyte recruitment, then we have a whole diagram of the same thing, then we have leukocyte addition. So recruitment, the entire process is very important, got it. There's a table about integrin and selectins, okay. There's a picture of leukocyte, then there's another box, leukocyte recruitment, so this is another important topic, okay. There's a diagram of neutrophil and macrophage, if you can see the graph. Then we have inflammatory reactions, histo, phagocytosis and its processes, difference between neutro and macrophage function, leukocyte activation, okay. Then we have phagocytosis, so these 2 are very important. Nitric oxide, ROS, NETs. NETs, there's a diagram also, so this is also very important. Leukocyte mediated tissue injury, other functions, termination, and there's another box of leukocyte activation. So I just flipped through the pages of the topic that I wanted to read.
Now I know what all are the topics that are going to be covered under what headings. And obviously, if there is a book, if there's a gold standard book which is providing you with a diagram, with flowchart, or any other statistical data or table of any topic, obviously that topic is important. So you need to make sure that when you're making notes, those topics are paid attention to. Your notes need to reflect the weightage of the importance of the topic. So now we're going to read this side by side. If you feel like I'm reading too fast, which I have already read this chapter, it might feel a little bit fast for you. Feel free to pause the video and read through. So we are going to speed read this. So
first, the definition of inflammation. There are 3 components: dilation, increased permeability, and emigration of leukocytes. Okay, so maybe in my notes I'll shorten these 3 things. Then the reaction of blood vessels, so this is the vascular events. Okay, these are the hemodynamic changes, and then there is this. This is again hemodynamic change. Vasodilation because of mediators, notably histamine. Again, histamine is mentioned, which means it is very important. Then it is increased permeability of microvasculature, loss of fluid, increased vessel diameter, small blood flow, stasis. With stasis, endothelial cells are activated, increased level of adhesion molecule is expressed. Then we have vascular permeability increase, contraction of endothelial cells. due to UV radiation, exposure to toxin, burn, etc. Then we have endothelial injury, physical, chemical, leukocytic. Then we have responses of lymphatic vessel, obviously, so as to drain the edema fluid. The flow of lymph will also increase. Then vasodilation, histamine is mentioned once. Increased vascular permeability, again histamine is mentioned, so histamine is a very important molecule here. Okay, lymphatic vessels. Okay, so here they are explaining redness and swelling due to via lymphatic vessel reaction. Then leukocyte recruitment. So changes in blood flow and vascular permeability are happening. Why? So that recruitment could happen. Recruitment happens because of chemokines, and there are processes. So I'll make like maybe a flowchart of these processes. And this is the same thing. PNE selectin are mentioned, so maybe in my notes I'll make sure to mention them. As for Cialis-Lewis X modified glycoprotein, there have been no past questions on this topic, so we are going to not pay a lot of mind to it. Okay, attachment of leukocyte to endothelial cells through adhesion molecules, which are enhanced by cytokines. And then there is one paragraph about selectin and integrins. I do not think knowing how these molecules work is very important. I think just knowing the name is enough. So in my notes, maybe I'll just mention the names. Migration through endothelium. Then again, there's this table about selectin and integrin. Movement is happening. Okay, then we have chemotaxis. So the movement towards the site of injury is called chemotaxis. Chemotaxis is happening how? IL-8, C5a and LTB4. And these bind to G-coupled protein receptors. And it leads to activation. Okay. Then we have nature of leukocyte infiltrate varies. In this paragraph they're saying, starting May, for the first 6 to 24 hours we have neutrophils, and then uske baad we have monocytes.
Okay. So what I'm trying to do here is, I am reading everything that the paragraph is saying, but I am trying to make sense of what the paragraph is telling me. I'm not trying to make sense of each and every line of the paragraph. I'm just trying to figure out, is there something important in this paragraph? Is there something high yield in this paragraph? Is there something that I should know from this paragraph that I should remember?
Right. Then we move on to leukocyte recruitment. Okay, we just did that. Phagocytosis and clearance. Okay. So leukocyte activation is important because iska niche we saw the diagram.
Now see, the fact that we know what is in diagram form, what is in different headings and subheadings, we are able to sort whether we want to make extensive notes on this topic, whether we want to spend a lot of time on this topic or not. This is the only reason why we were skimming through it. Plus also it's called something as priming.
So basically phagocytosis has 3 steps. Okay. Receptors, they mention MAC receptors, they mention opsonization, engulfment, phagolysosome, intracellular destruction. See, leukocytic activation, we remember there was a diagram. It is important. Then phagocytosis is also important. Nitric oxide, NOS, myelin peroxidase, nitric oxide. Now also you can see in this, there are antioxidants mentioned. We will skip this. Because we've already covered this in the previous chapter, where we have discussed oxidative stress on the cell. So we're not going to make double notes for the same topic. So we have nitric oxide here, lysosomal enzyme. Also not going into the details of lysosomal enzymes because obviously we already know how it works. We've done physiology, we have done chapter 1 of patho. Right? Neutrophil extracellular traps, NATs, these are important because there was a diagram. Okay. They produce enzymes, they are activated neutrophils. Leukocyte mediated tissue injury. So, fourth line, once the leukocytes are activated, their effective mechanism do not distinguish between offender and the host. Once activated, they're like blindfolded. Aankhon pe patti bandi hai. They cannot see if the molecule in front of them or if the cell in front of them is host or not. So, whatever comes in front of them, they attack. There is leukocyte mediated tissue injury. Because not only is it trying to kill the pathogen, it is also killing your innocent bystander tissue cells as well. So, this is something that I need to know so as to it makes sense to me. Why are leukocytes attacking our body? Doesn't that mean autoimmunity? But it is not important enough for me to write in my notes. This is something that I should know so that I understand. Now here, if you can see in this paragraph, last 5th line, frustrated phagocytosis. Now this is, if I were reading it for the first time, I would find this very interesting. Like there is a term for a type of phagocytosis. Maybe it can be asked for MCQ, maybe it can be asked for like a 2-mark question. So I would have added that in my notes. Moving further, other functional responses, termination of acute inflammatory response. So in this paragraph, all you need to know is 2 things. First of all, neutrophils die. That's how they, within several hours, they have short half-lives, so they die by apoptosis. Secondly, inflammation itself kickstarts the formation of autoregulatory molecules, which are these TGF-beta and IL-10. This is all you need to know from this paragraph. Then again, we have a box for leukocyte activation and removal, which is phagocytosis. So ROS is mentioned, this is important. NETs are mentioned, that is important. Mediators of inflammation is a whole different topic, which is beyond the scope of this video. So for now, you have studied with me these many pages of Robbins.
Oh, this is like acute inflammation, all of it. Mediators of acute inflammations are remaining, which will be covered afterwards. So these are my notes. Those were, I don't know, I think almost 10 plus pages. This is 2.5 pages barely. All of that information is in these pages, and I'll tell you how. You may take a screenshot if you want to. So see, acute inflammation, the heading is in red. In front of it, there is DPE. DPE is the mnemonic for the definition. D is for dilation of small vessel. P is for permeability. E is for emigration. And because it is acute, it means it has been what? Less than 2 weeks. So this is the complete definition. Then there are the events. Now, if I were to follow what was written in Robbins, the way it is written in Robbins, line-wise, point-wise, line-wise, point-wise, there are so many events happening. Obviously, it's very easy for me to forget one of them, maybe 2 of them. So what I did, I made it into a flowchart. Because flowcharts, because flowcharts in itself is very easy to remember, right? So now I know vascular events mein there are 2 things happening. Cellular mein also there are 2 things happening. Vascular mein what is happening? Hemodynamic and permeability. Cellular mein there is exudation and phagocytosis. So now I'll tell you how I used to read my notes after I had taken them. First, what will happen? Transient vasoconstriction. So for a very short amount of time, if this is your vessel, vasoconstriction will happen. And then after that, what will happen? Persistent progressive vasodilation. Persistent means continuous. Progressive यानी बढ़ता जा रहा है. It keeps increasing. Vasodilation. So now the vessel is big. If the vessel is big, it has more blood passing through. So this vasodilation leads to what? Kaler and Ruber. One of the cardinal signs of inflammation. Then because there is a lot of fluid here now, what will happen? It will increase the hydrostatic pressure. What is hydrostatic pressure in simple terms? Amount of fluid. So there is more fluid, more pressure. More pressure. What does the fluid do? Exert pressure in all directions. So this pressure is being exerted on the capillary wall. Now what will capillary wall do? It will let the fluid pass. There is only a certain amount of resistance. उसके बाद वो fluid निकल जाएगा. So that fluid is exudation. And this exudate is rich in what? Protein and cellular debris. This exudation is the reason why there is tumor, which is the third cardinal sign of inflammation, which is a bump, maybe tumor. Then we have microcirculation stasis. Now I am telling you, if there is a lot of blood here, the amount of blood is constant. So if it is being pooled before something, the amount of blood reaching that thing would be less. So microcirculation में stasis हो जाएगा. So because of the vasodilation, the pressure head in the microcirculation will go down. इधर पे pool हो गया blood, so the amount of blood that is able to exert pressure in your microcirculation has also reduced. And because that is reduced, there is less flow. Less flow is called what? Stasis. So microcirculation stasis हो गया. Then we have leukocytic margination. Now if you see in pencil, there is a mark, cellular events, which means due to the stasis, cellular events can continue or they start. Then I've explained the triple response. This is also covered again in, I think, CNS. It is called axonal response if I'm not wrong. Now if you see this here, I've added this sticky note at the very end once I was reviewing my notes. You see how I've written Viva over there? Because this is the question asked in Viva. What is the chronological order of events happening in acute inflammation? So increased vascular permeability could be due to 5 reasons. See? 5, right? So first reason is endothelial contraction. So your venule or your vessel is made up of multiple cells. These cells are what? Endothelium. If for whatever reason they contract, they pull together. So the gap between the cells, what happens? This is the cell. They are pulling together. Now the gap between them has increased. If there is more gap, what will happen? The fluid can easily pass through. So there is increased permeability. And how is this happening? Histamine. Why is histamine highlighted? It was in the box, which means it is important. And I cannot forget it because it's important. Then we have mild endothelial damage. Again, due to whatever damage, the cytoskeleton system contracts. If someone hits you, what do? You try to make yourself small so that you don't get hit more. Same thing, endothelium cell again contracts. Because of this contraction, the existing gap again intracellular junction पे increase हो जाएगा. Why is this happening? This is happening because of TNF alpha and IL-1. So these were the pre-existing junctions which were being increased in size. Then we have direct and indirect endothelial injury. So direct injury is if the cell is dead, what will happen? It will detach from the lining. तो अभी तक यहाँ पे एक सेल था वो डिटैच हो गया. Now we have this gap. So again, physical gaps has increased. Then we have leukocyte-mediated endothelial injury. Remember while we were reading, what did we discover? Once activated, it cannot differentiate between host and foreign body. So it will attack the endothelium cell. It will try to digest it by proteolytic enzymes or reactive oxygen species. Again, what will happen? The cell will die or the cell will get perforated. So ऊपर के दो causes में क्या हो रहा था? There was increased in the pre-existing cell junction gap. बीच वाले दो में क्या हो रहा है? Cell में ही दिक्कत आ रही है. So there is literal holes in the cell. There is no gap junction here. And lastly, leakiness in neovascularization. If there are new vessels being formed for whatever reason, if there is an injury, if the wound is healing, if there is any cause of neovascularization, the new vessels are in the beginning leaky, which means it has high tissue capillary. And why is neovascularization happening? Because of VEGF, vascular endothelium growth factor, if I'm not wrong. So this one page is all of your relevance, which here is even further condensed in 2 lines. तो पहले क्या होता है? Vessel contracts, then it relaxes. Because of relaxation, there is increased pressure. Because of increased pressure, locally जहाँ का pressure increase हुआ है वहाँ पे क्या हुआ? Hyperemia, which leads to calor, which leads to rubor. Then there is stasis in the forwarding microcirculation, which leads to what? Transudation. Transudation and exudation lead to what? Tumor. Then we have vascular events, vascular permeability events. So first of all, there is contraction of endothelium. Then there is damage to endothelium. Again, contraction happens. Then there is injury to endothelium, which could be leukocyte mediated or it could be direct. Either cases, the physical structure is gone. So there are holes through the endothelium. There are physical gaps. And then we have the neovascularization leakiness. So all of this, I think we covered this much topic in maybe 4 to 5 pages of Robbins. This is 1 page of my notes. Then we have the cellular events. So cellular events were 2. Exudation of leukocyte and phagocytosis. Exudation किस-किसका हो सकता है? PMNs का होता है, monocytes का होता है, macrophages का होता है. What are the processes? Margination, pavement, rolling, adhesion, immigration, chemotaxis. And there's this stupid mnemonic that I don't even remember anymore. To remember the correct sequence, MPRAEC. I used to call it MPRAC. I don't remember. So there was this paragraph in Robbins which is being explained by these 2 diagrams on the top. So when there is fast flow in any vessel, what happens is, due to viscosity or the layers with the maximum friction tend to flow in the center and the layers with the minimum viscosity tend to flow in the periphery. तो अब viscosity कैसे बढ़ती है blood की? Because of the blood cells. So in the peripheral boundary, the peripheral collar, plasma percentage would be more and in the center, cellular component would be more. This is when the flow is fast. Now, why is the flow fast? Normal circulation. But now what is the problem with this fast flow? All my cells are in the center. If I want my WBC to go through diapedesis, it cannot. Why? Because it is not coming in contact with the wall. So what do? The answer is stasis. Because of fast flow, all of this problem is being created. I will stop that fast flow. I will create microvascular stasis. Now because of stasis, जो laminar flow बना हुआ था बीच में cells का, it will get dispersed equally. Now my leukocyte can contact the vessel wall and continue. So this is the flow chart for the same. So there is margination, narrowing of peripheral plasma flow. You see this line, this was plasma and center में cell थे, तो ये जो plasma वाला layer है, this will thin out to the point where the cells can actually reach the vessel wall. So margination happens, and of course there's this diagram where my cell is moving to the periphery. Then we have pavementing. So peripheral endothelial cell के contact में my WBC has come, see in this diagram. Then we have rolling. For anything to roll on the surface, you need to make sure that it is sticky but not too sticky. So it has low affinity integrin and it is slow rolling on the endothelial surface by receiving signals from the endothelia. Now, you remember there was this whole paragraph about selectin and integrin molecules. This is the useful part of that. On the WBC, we have two receptors, alpha and beta. Alpha is also called CD11. It connects to P-selectin. It binds to P-selectin. And beta receptor is called CD18. It binds to E-selectin. So now they are rolling. And at some point, there is a transient bond formation between leukocyte and endothelium stronger than the above, which is called adhesion. Right? So in adhesion, we have selectins binding to ICAM1 molecule. Selectin कौन से? PEL. Now here's a small tidbit from Robbins' Weevil Pallidae bodies, which is where is the selectin coming from? P-selectin coming from an endothelia. This is the organ that stores it. Then we have immigration. In immigration, see the diagram? There is some pseudopodia kind of situation happening. So what happens in immigration? या तो endothelia को cross करके वो अपना pseudopod निकाल देगा and it will squeeze out, or else it will digest the endothelia and get out anyway. So that is your diapedesis. Then we have chemotaxis. Remember in the book chemotaxis में बहुत बड़ा paragraph दिया था for chemokines. So what are the chemokines? IL-8, C5a, leukotriene B4 and soluble bacterial products. Right? Then we enter the other topic or the next part, phagocytosis. Now what all cells can perform phagocytosis? PMN, circulating monocyte, fixed tissue mononuclear phagocytes. What is fixed tissue mononuclear phagocytes? In short, these are the cells which are specific to an organ or a tissue. I'll give an example. Let's say in the lungs we have dust cells. What are the dust cells? They are macrophage, but they are fixed in the lung tissue, right? That's what they are. So it has 3 steps: recognition and attachment, engulfment, killing and degradation. So here's again a flowchart, and in very tiny diagrams I've explained what is happening. Recognition में क्या होता है? We have a macrophage. Macrophage has these receptors. MAC1, mannose receptor है जो कि. Then we have scavenger receptor. These bind to IgG, C3b and lectin. Binding of these two leads to opsonization. Opsonization is what? Making tasty. You make something attractive. What are we making attractive here? Whatever there is to be phagocytosed, so that the macrophage is attracted towards it. We make it tasty. So engulfment is the next step. Cytoplasm extends around and fuses with it. And it makes what? It makes a phagosome. This phagosome fuses with lysosomal granules. It forms phagolysosome. This is not written separately here because we've already covered this in first chapter again. Right, so this is it. Then we have continuation into killing and degradation. So killing and degradation could be what? Extracellular or intracellular. Either the cell takes it inside, digests it and releases the byproducts, or it can release the enzymes that were going to destroy the product. So extracellular would be granule. Extracellular would be immune mechanism through antibodies. Intracellularly, what can we do? We have reactive oxygen species, which could be MPO dependent or independent. We have lysosomal granules and we have non-oxidative bactericidal mechanism. None of these are explained because again, we have already covered this in the previous chapter. Now, this is an example of how ROS works. So, neutrophils have an enzyme called phagocyte oxidase. Release of this enzyme leads to a respiratory burst, which leads to release of nascent oxygen. This nascent oxygen is a bactericidal agent, and lack of this enzyme will cause what? Chronic granulomatous disease. Then we have NET. Remember there was a diagram of this. You see, I've written in red Nakabandi because that is literally what NETs are. These are random neutrophils which make a meshy network fibrillar network बनाया इनने, and they release substances, antimicrobial substances. So whatever is passing through, if it is infective, if it is pathogenic, if it should not be passing, these antimicrobial substances being produced here will prevent the spread of that substance in the body. What happens in Nakabandi? You stop people at one location, you check and then you let them go. Similarly, these NETs check and they let them go. And if they find a problem, which is any microbial substance, right, they engulf it right then and there and they prevent their spread. Then at the very last, we have factors affecting acute inflammation. So if your organism is very virulent, if you took a high dose, if the entry portal was like maybe directly into the bloodstream, all of these will have a stronger inflammatory response, correct? Now, host specific systemic diseases हो सकते हैं, immune status would have a big impact on how strong the inflammation is, right? All of these things. Then we have the morphology. Morphology is first of all dilatation of small vessel. Definition क्या थी इसकी? Dilatation of small vessel. So here it is. Then accumulation of leukocyte and fluid and extravascular tissue. Again, part of the definition. Now this accumulation of leukocyte and fluid and extravascular tissue, I can use these 2 points anywhere. Anywhere where I have to describe acute inflammation, I can use them. Let's say for example, lung inflammation. So in lung inflammation, if I have not studied anything, I can write at least this much. First, there is dilatation of small vessels. Second, there is accumulation of leukocyte and fluid in extravascular tissue. What would be the extravascular tissue in case of lung? The parenchyma, the alveoli, right? So this is it. So that covers your entire acute inflammation, and I kind of sped through it. I hope it made sense to you now. So more or less, you will have to go through your notes, make very good notes, read the book only once, go through your notes, and keep updating your notes. If you find anything is missing in your notes, write it down. If you find something is more important than the other, highlight it. But go through your notes. And your notes would always be better than anyone else's because you know what you've written. To summarize this video, multiple readings are not needed. Read the book once, read it very well, and make your notes so well that you don't need to refer back to the book ever again. And when you're learning and when you're writing your answer, keep in mind the why of what is happening. If you have not watched my previous video on approach to pathology, I suggest you do because I've explained it there. So you focus on the why of the pathology and you focus on the how it is happening. If you keep in mind these two things, no one can confuse you. Your concepts would be very strong and you would always have the right answer down. And also, when you're writing the answers, make sure that you're adding the headings and you add the right keywords. Let's say, for example, you are writing about left-sided heart failure. You write a whole page, right? But you do not anywhere mention heart failure cells in lung, or rather hemosiderin-laden macrophages. There will be a marked deduction. So pathology is all about patterns. It's all about how something is happening, and it is all about what that keyword is. All the things that I've taught you for acute inflammation, ये सब rinse repeat होगा for everywhere there is acute inflammation, no matter the system, no matter the tissue. The only thing that will change is the name of the cells, the condition due to which this is happening, and the keywords. If you can somehow memorize just this much and understand what is happening, you will have such an easy time with the subject. So yes, that was it. I hope it helped and I wish you the best.